Oh. Now, welcome to SongbyToad's video diaries for South by Southwest 2013. Before we get into the music thing, I thought that I'd just do a quick video just showing you roughly what the interactive trade show is like, because I do go along to that as well. SongbyToad is obviously an internet business, but I have no real place at Interactive. You know, it's where people go to invent. At the moment, you know, the hot new stuff is cloud computing and crowdsourcing and shit like that. But I go because it's really interesting. So you can either go to a bunch of startup meetings and stuff like that if you're really in the business, or you can do what I do, which is just go to shit that is interesting. And that can be anything from looking at you know, sessions on 3D printing to wandering the trade show, finding lathes where you can hand cut your own records at home, to, as I did in this case, going to shitloads of presentations about space.
So our closest neighbor is over 4 light years away. Going the fastest we've gone, going as far as we've gone using Voyager as an example, which was launched in 1977. It would take us 70,000 years to get to another star. Going at that speed means we have to go much faster. We have to create a whole lot more energy. If we learn to create and control and store that type of energy, then imagine where we'd have gone in terms of solving the world's energy problems, how we transform the world.
Of answering the questions, religion hasn't been able to get it done in terms of uniting us and unifying us. I think culture and cooperative effort are the way for us. If we are to survive as a species, we have to learn how to cooperate more and compete less.
But there's another really good reason to start doing this asteroid research, which is planetary defense. I expect you guys are probably familiar, since you have space interests, that last week we had 2 events on the same day. We had one very near miss of a very large asteroid that we only knew about some months prior to a relatively short period of time prior to this near miss, where it came inside the ring of our geostationary satellites. And you can see that's the little blue line there. You can see how its path was profoundly changed by the gravity of the Earth. On that same day, a different meteor actually did enter the Earth's atmosphere and blew up over Russia and did a large amount of damage, including injuring people. And these events that we're now becoming more and more aware of are not nearly as rare as we had thought of, because the span of human communication and then the span of time where humans are now basically everywhere on the Earth, and we even have sensors to detect things that are hitting in the oceans, etc. We've only had that for a few decades. And so as it turns out, these very large events are not nearly as uncommon as we thought. And in 2029, there's one that's going to come really, really close. There's an asteroid called Apophis that, if it were to hit the Earth, could cause just enormous amounts of damage. It's known pretty well mathematically now that this is not going to hit the Earth on this pass. However, in 2036, it's going to come back again, and even though in this case they still don't think it will hit the Earth, it actually has a considerably higher probability still of hitting the Earth, and they even know the probable track across the Earth there where it might hit.
The great man version of history, because quite frankly it feeds the image of the rock star inventor. The rock star entrepreneur, the misunderstood genius. The lone inventor myth is really good at selling t-shirts. So who invented the iPad? This, of course, is a scene from the Stanley Kubrick classic 1969 film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. We see 2 men watching BBC 12 on devices that can very well be interpreted, if you've never seen the film, as an iPad. Samsung even cited this scene in court as prior art that would invalidate Apple's patents on what amounts to patenting an interactive, rectangular media viewing device. And guess what? It was an extremely complex mix of authors and ideas, everyone taking from everyone else. Sometimes people were inspired by contemporaries, other times by historical examples, but no single person contributing to these technologies was inventing in a vacuum.
Now the centre of South by Southwest, particularly during the really legitimate stuff, which is interactive, that's all focused in the convention centre. And in that place you can, and well, to be fair, it spreads to every hotel in town, really. You can go, I mean, every ballroom is pressed into service. As I said, you can go to mixers, you can go to panel discussions for advice, you can wander through the trade show. But the other thing they have is an awful lot of keynote speakers. And sometimes these are really hard to get into, like how, you know, last year with the closing keynote speech was Bruce Springsteen. It was just fucking rammed, no chance. Mrs. Toad last year queued for 40 minutes and still couldn't get into a Lego seminar. And this year there were a couple of really interesting ones. First up with Nick Cave, just a conversation with Nick Cave, which I went to just because he's a musical hero of mine. And then one of the closing keynotes was Matthew Inman, who runs the Oatmeal cartoon. And I think primarily because he's had such success with crowdfunding this year, he seemed suitable. But these kind of things, they're just fascinating, you know.
They actually gave us a list of songs we were allowed to play. We played it, I remember now, we played it at university, and you know, which is kind of a hub of free thinking and all of that sort of stuff. And we were given a list of the songs we were allowed to play and the songs we weren't allowed to play, because some people had sat down and gone through all the songs and decided, well, these ones are acceptable and these ones weren't. And that was obviously a recipe for disaster.
And you tell people you're making comics for a living, the reaction is, oh, that's cute. Like, you know, that no one takes you seriously. And if you compound that and add the internet to it, you take any job and you add the internet to it and it just sounds sad. I mean, it's like I make movies, oh my God, on the internet. Oh, that's so cute. Like, with your mom, you know, like that's kind of the reaction. And with comics, that is a rightful reaction. And you know, in traditional syndicated comic strips, there's not much room for new people.
Initially, of course, South by Southwest was a music festival back when the music business was booming, but you know, things like Twitter and Foursquare and that have all been launched at the interactive part of the festival in the last sort of few years. So suddenly, with the arse falling out of the music industry, the interactive stuff is absolutely huge. That is where the money goes. But it's weird, like on Wednesday, you see like all these legitimate business people, the money leaves town and it's replaced by this gigantic fuck off enormous street party, which is the music. And the first thing we went to on Wednesday night was to see a Newell at the British Music Embassy, and sort of, I don't know, to kick off the madness, I suppose.
There you are!